Hello and welcome to Flybytes, and today we're talking about minimum safe altitudes in the context of a VFR flight. So what's a minimum safe altitude? Well, a minimum safe altitude is the altitude at which you plan not to fly below. So how do we work that one out then? Well, there are two ways. On the chart, there's something called a maximum elevation figure for an area of the chart. And what that details is the maximum height of the highest object within that area. Now, bear in mind that's a maximum elevation figure. That's not a minimum safe altitude because we need to add something extra to that. So generally speaking, we would add 500 feet to that figure, and then you've got a minimum safe altitude to fly. However, that's not the best way to go about it, because that might be a little onerous on you, because obviously we may not be flying close to that object within the area on the chart to which that maximum elevation figure applies. So there's a better way. So what you should do is take a chart and draw your line on your chart for your route, and then 5 miles each side of your line and 5 miles radius around the ends. That's the area that you're going to look at in detail, and you're looking for two things. So the first thing you're looking at is the highest ground within that area. Now, you'll see spot heights dotted around the chart, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the highest ground within that area. So what you should do is look at the colour of the terrain on a half-mil chart, which details how high the ground is above sea level. So, for example, a white piece of chart could contain ground that goes up to 500 feet above mean sea level. What we then have to do is we have to think about masts, which could exist on top of that ground. Now, interestingly, a mast is only marked on a chart if that mast exceeds 329 feet. Bit of an odd figure, and it's because it comes from the fact that actually it's 100 meters. So if a mast doesn't reach 329 feet, it's not going to be shown on your chart. But we still need to take that into account in case we accidentally fly over the top of the mast, because it's not marked, so we don't necessarily know that it's there. So we then have to allow 329 feet, so let's be generous, let's round that up to 400 feet on top of our terrain. So that means the highest thing that we could hit, so to speak, on a white piece of chart would be 500 feet plus 400 feet, could be 900 feet above mean sea level. Now, according to the rules of the air and CIRA, we also then need to remain at least 500 feet away from UK rules, or CIRA rules 500 feet above, okay, that object. So that means we've got 900 feet object, we have to add another 500 feet to that. So our minimum safe altitude in this case would be 1,400 feet. So if a mast is marked on a chart, then that's marked with an altitude, and that takes into account also the level of the terrain upon which that mast is sitting. So you then have to look at your area again and then have a look at any higher masts which are marked, and then add your 500 feet to that, so that you would be 500 feet on top of that mast. And then you take the higher of those two figures, and that becomes your minimum safe altitude. So all of that good practice is described in either the navigation course that we have or the best navigation practices, all on Easy PPL Ground School. So I hope that helps, and happy flying.